All right, shalom. Let us continue. We had actually left off this word, sound, and power practical teaching to teach on that, whether we like it or not, right? This universe, the Universe, as Rastafari call it, the Universe, or the one verse, the one word, right? The universe is a word center and a word controlled universe. That the Almighty, He established it that way from the very beginning. He made everything by calling, by speaking things which be not, which don't exist, as though they were, as though they be. Romans 4:17, that He set this whole system, the whole operating system of the universe, in motion by speaking into the darkness, speaking into the ignorance, right? Speaking into the so-called unknown, right? And saying, Burhan Yuhun, light be, and Burhan Kone, and light was, and light became. As it says that the light shines in the darkness, but the darkness does not comprehend it. Now, darkness is not referred to no racial kind of confusion of white supremacy. It's referring to ignorance, right? Ignorance, because we know the secret of melanin and light, right? And that's a very interesting aspect right there as it pertains to the black Messiah, or the true Messiah, speaking of the contents of his character, and not simply from a white Western Gentile sense, from his racial disposition in the Western Gentile sense, in the racist sense of it. But let's continue that the whole scriptures, the whole Bible, the Metzav Kedus, the book of the seven seals, from Genesis to Revelation, makes it abundantly, right, abundantly clear that we live under and in a word-activated system. That this whole universe is word-activated, right? Both in what you see and what you don't see. It's all word-activated system. It's always been that way, and it always will be that way. It is what it is. We can't change that fact. However, on the other hand, what we can do, what we are able to do, is to choose the words under which and in which we live. Thus the crux, right? The root of word, sound, and power. Now, Yeshua, Jesus, He explained it in Matthew chapter 12, verse 34 to 37 this way. He said, out of the abundance of the mouth, out of the abundance of the heart, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. Out of the abundance, right? Out of the abundance. Now, when it says heart, we need to understand a couple of things about heart. And here I bring up these scales, right? These scales from ancient Egypt, right? Because Moses, right, was learned in the wisdom of the Egyptians, and he was mighty in word and in deed. Now, there's a great mystery here, because this right here is the weighing of the heart. This is what they call the judgment, right? The judgment hall scene. And let's see if we can bring this up, right? The judgment hall scene, right? The judgment hall scene, right? This is ancient ancient Christianity. There's a lot of dispute about that, but most of those disputes are ignorant and racist, right? Disputes about the ancient Egyptian and Bible connection, right? It's based on a Western Gentile mistranslation. But right here, Anubis, Anpu, right, who corresponds with the John the Baptist type, right? The baptizer, the immerser, the embalmer. Remember, when we are baptized into Christ, we are baptized into His death. He's here weighing the heart, right? He's weighing the heart, right? The heart right here is being weighed against the feather, right? The feather of truth, right? The feather of ma'at, the feather of truth, the word of truth. Now, this is very interesting, because the scriptures, right, and writing was written with a quill, right, which was a feather, right, writing, right? So the written word, as I think it's Psalm 140, I think it's 149, says about the written judgment, right? The written judgment, right? So that it is already written. It is written. Now, what our role is to learn, well, what is written? So here is Ani, right? And Ani in the Hebrew means I. He is garbed in the white robes, the robes of righteousness, right? Now he is brought before the throne, right? He is brought before the throne of God, but first his heart must be weighed. Now in Christendom it speaks about that he that believeth or admits who remains and is baptized shall be saved, but he that does not amen, right, is damned already, right, is damned already. Now, once he passes that test, he is brought by the chosen, or the Teferī, right, the chosen, which is a Christ-like figure, right, in the ancient church, right, the ancient Egyptian church. He is brought now before the throne, right, before the throne of God, right. He's brought before what in Revelation is known as that white judgment, you understand, or that white, the white throne, right, which is the judgment scene, right, that we have in Revelation. Now, this is very interesting right here, because this reminds me of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, right, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, that flower, the waters, right, the ever-living waters, right, and that tree, the tree, the agricultural symbology that is found as well. Now he is presented, right? He is presented before the God, right? Now what is interesting is that, like I said, Moses was learned in the wisdom of the Egypts, and he was mighty in word, right? In word, so he understood the word and the deed. Now here we have Tehuti. Now, when you study the scriptures from the Ethiopic and the Royal Amharic, you find that Tehut, right? Tehut actually means humble, or is translated as meek in the scriptures. There are two men who are called meek in the scriptures. Do you know who they are? Scripturally speaking, biblically speaking, it's Moses and Yeshua, right? Moses and Yeshua. So now the heart is weighed. Now let's take a stock of what the Moshiach, what Yeshua is saying right here, right? And we see this as being a correspondence from ancient Egypt, right? A correspondence here from ancient Egypt. So let's bring this right here. So we have the heart, right? The heart being weighed against the feather, which is symbolic of the written, right, the written word, right, the written word. So let's touch on this right here. Yeshua explained it that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. You know, when your feelings and your thoughts just well up, and there's so much there, even though you want to keep your mouth closed, you know, when your feeling and your emotion, your heart, your consciousness gets full, this is when your cup, in other words, proverbially speaking, floweth over. He goes on, Yeshua, Jesus goes on to say that a good man out of the good treasure, now notice how this is spoken, good treasure, right? Words are valuable. The good treasure of the heart, of the consciousness, bringeth forth good things, right? Bringeth forth good word sound. Right, good word sound, in spite of what the situation might be, bringeth forth good word sound, right? Good things out of his treasure, out of his treasury. You know, when people store it in their heart, you know, they treasure it in their heart. And we use the same type of symbolic language today. The ancients, they in the kindergarten phase of humanity, they painted pictures to describe when we get over, right, our ignorance, right, which describes the Christ story. Notice the cross right here, right, the cross right here, right, and Christ says that wisdom, this is ma'at, right, wisdom is justified by her children, right, her children, right? Now, the feather of my eye is often said, some assume it helps to tip it, right, in our favor, which is a manifestation of grace, right? Is a manifestation of that grace of God. And we can see even in the scriptures that maternal or mother aspect of the Almighty, right? That the mother aspect of God, right there, or the church. We can also say the church aspect as well, the churchical or the bride, one can also say aspect. But an evil man, right, an evil man out of the evil treasure, right? So there's evil treasure, right? There's evil treasure. There's evil words, right? There's evil words which are of great value, right, to those who have invested in evil speech, right, in evil thoughts, in mixed up moods and attitudes and negative behavior, right? An evil man out of the evil treasure bringeth forth evil things, bringeth forth evil things, right? Bringeth forth evil thoughts, evil words, right? Evil words and thoughts. And you notice the word always precedes the action, whether the word is articulated outwardly or the word is thought within, right? Now we're speaking spirituality here, right? See, the religion has an aspect. The hymeneut has a role to play to teach those basics. But it's now up to us to practice righteousness, right? To practice right amen, right faith, and right speaking. But I say to you, Yeshua says, but I say to you that every idle word, get this, every idle word. You know, many times folks will speak and say, oh, well, that doesn't mean nothing. I mean, I said it, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. You know, it doesn't really mean nothing. But those are idle words. Every idle word that men shall speak. There we go. That men shall speak. Word, sound, and power. Every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment. So what do we have right here? Right? Prefigured. I think that's what I was actually trying to articulate a little bit earlier. Prefigured right here. Right? Shall give an account of. Right? Shall give an account of. Right? In the day of judgment. Right? In the day of judgment. Shall give an account of. Must give a weighing. Right? So that which is written. You see that which is written? So the heart right here. And the treasure in the heart is weighed against the word that is written. Right? The written word. Right? Now, for by thy words, the Moshiach says, by thy words, by our words, thou shalt be justified. Thou shalt be made righteous. By our what? It didn't say by your actions, what you do, right? It says by our words, and it's speaking of speaking, right? Not even just saying thinking. We might think certain things, but then when you speak it, you now put it into, you put it into the spirit. Right? It now enters the spirit world, because spirit means breath, means ear, relates to spiritus, ear. Right? So when we speak, it says, for by thy words, we should say by thy spoken words, thou shalt be justified, right? Made righteous, right? And by thy words, thou shalt be condemned. This is a beautiful explanation right here that the Moshiach gives us, a beautiful explanation right here of the judgment scene, right? Of the judgment scene, right? By thy words, right? By thy words, right? When one's words are weighed in judgment. So the ancient church, right? The ancient church understood this reality, right? Our heart, right, being weighed against the feather, and it's the feather of truth. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Whom the Son has freed is free indeed.